that whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. So hello there everyone, and welcome to this video with me here today, where I want to address some of the topics that keep coming up for me in my spirit guidance and the awareness of what is truly important at this time. So you can see the title, you can see a little bit what this is about, or it's going to aim towards. But I want to give some references, just as well, because it's going to be a little more overall topic as well. I was shown that we are now, up until the solstice point this year, in a very important decision-making process, which is an inward process of where we're really going, So I'm noticing now at this time, with so much coming up, that people who are in the so-called Ascension movement or in the awakening movement or field, all right, there's so much processing this, that what's going to happen, exchanging information, interviews, talking about the collective stuff, all of that. People who are actually literally ascending with the body at this time, those of you who've been doing the inner preparation work for this process of alchemical transformation, transmutation, and transfiguration, you know that this now, at this point where you are, you're simply finding yourself no longer feeling that you are in need of putting your input in places where it's just like excess, it's like an excess amount of energy that basically it's not necessary for you to participate with. So the question now at this time that they're showing me is, what am I consciously choosing to participate with? And what is truly guiding me into a physical ascension process, or what is guiding me more in a path of mental discussion of what ascension is and all that? So we've had, up until the 2012 point, the debate or the discussion process where, a lot of information started to pour out. Basically, what I witnessed myself is a lot of information that came in the 80s and 90s starting to resurface, and we came across such fields of reference or people who actually wrote either books or published something on the topic of what needs to be done to prepare for this time. Then we have the 2012, right? It was the point of this convergence where the cosmic convergence or harmonic convergence, I call it the cosmic convergence myself, but that which was initiated in the 87, right? 1987, with the whole process of the merging of realms, okay? So where the multidimensional sphere of, it's like our application and what actually started creating and guiding us on this path of new genesis. And this is what my guidance is calling it. It's a new planetary genesis, which naturally coincides with your inner new genesis. So I will be talking more about this in the planetary genesis and our own physical genesis in the new body course, in the new human body template that we are creating, many of you who are actually moving towards this path. So the first thing you're going to feel now that this, all the information, all the resources now, if we're still using our energy or vital life force to engage in these processes, it's kind of like we will feel you're giving energy away. At the same time, this will feel like you're giving your power away, because this is one. Okay, our energy, truly, our vital life force is our source of power. The power that was used within duality was the power of the mind that, schemed and plotted and created different, whatever it was, right? Different points of awareness that it used more to cultivate that for the self. Whereas the process of ascension created an opening towards a bigger picture. And now it's time to withdraw and put that breath of life back in. So this, my guidance is calling it, is this is the incubation phase that's required for the new body building, for the template building. People who are going to continue to use a lot of their energy processes to maintain the status quo, even if that has to deal with talking about ascension, is we're no longer at the point of we need to inform the world what's happening, because I was shown that all information, everything's already there. Okay, it's there. We don't have to. And that's why they were showing me that even the way I used to process information and share it with all of you here in my videos, it's kind of coming to a closure, the way I used to do things. And that in a way is reflected in the number of views kind of dropping, because the seeds have been planted. The right people who needed to gather this information, who needed to get their triggers, their awakening points, they did so. Okay, now it's time for the inward based process. That I know it's kind of challenging, because once people start to move into this, a sense of unity externally outside of themselves, because a lot of people on the path of being light workers were so used to being alone all the time. So this is kind of a lucrative thing, right? All of a sudden there's people who resonate with what you feel in your heart, what you wish to do or express out in the world. But now people who actually want to do the path of physical ascension will notice a different unfolding in their own process. So I want to discuss this today. So we have Mercury retrograde, which is perfect for this. And I've shared with you before, it occurred when it started its movement backwards, right? It actually touched the point of my own ascendant, which is 13 degrees of Sag. And for those of you who maybe also have Sag ascendant, you will notice a lot of this pull towards a whole new way of the way you see reality, because Jupiter, that rules Sagittarius, is that, seeking of greater wisdom and truth, which that we have a lumen truth, which is the ultimate truth, where the principles of creation always apply regardless of realms or whatever. But we also have the transitional or evolutionary truth, which is the guidance we continue to receive in real time, which is this now moment with all of our presences gathered. I discussed this more specifically in the upcoming free course that I will publish very soon, the difference between the quantum, the real time, all of these things, and the way to move beyond the points of inception and into our original point of conception, which is our own birthing process, where the soul gives the initiative, right, to create its own inner birth. And this aligns with the planetary transition and ascension as well. Whereas for a lot of you on the ascension path, which is the true physical ascension path, not ascension via death, okay, the normal process, right, when you're still experiencing the wheel, those of you who want to experience life as a spiral, and this is what true ascension is, you will feel like you're no longer being pulled, even if there's such things as worldly events. You will see them with neutrality, with benevolence and compassion, but you will also have your own stand within everything that's happening, because you know that the path you're choosing has to be viewed in parallel, because in a way it is so different. It's just a different path. There's different choices. So within all of this, I want to share what still kind of pulls us back into the old, that we perceive, well, we have to do this or to maintain the status quo. The first thing I want to share is my own recent liberation story, because all of a sudden, for a while now, I have been feeling this pull to simply eliminate things that I feel kind of, they pull me towards more density instead of more lightness, okay? So one of the things I did, I found someone who was able to get my crap out of the basement. Basically, half of the things were not even mine. When we moved, some of the things that were there, like certain tools and things, they went with us, and they just stayed in the basement. And it felt like, that's not even mine. I'm not even using that. Why is it there? Okay, and we never actually had the time to deal with it, because my time was so focused on, bringing this higher guidance and putting it into the structure that we would require at this time. But what's required of us now to do, and that's why Venus was retrograde in Scorpio, which is the basement, right, the underworld. And in this process, we've actually witnessed how much there might be still hooks or things that bind us to this reality in terms of this certain density. So we, in our daily reality or daily routine or tasks or chores, we're not always noticing what no longer is needed for us, what we no longer require. And we get so used to these things, or the way our life is structured, the way we function, that we don't require or we don't acquire new processes, which means we don't use new creative venues and ideas, and the way we structure our reality, the way we think in new ways. So I felt for a while now that what really binds me as well is my car. And I know I used to be very mobile, because I was able to go to different mountains and do my seeding work and all the work that I had to do as a creation pillar. And all of a sudden, that no longer felt right, because, the way you will feel this imbalance is when the level of what you receive no longer kind of like is matched with your input. that will be imbalanced, right? Because in this equilibrium state, the level of your input will always reflect the kind of level of output for you, and you will be able to maintain your reality at such a level. When you shift levels, you shift inner paradigms, you shift templates. I've talked about this in the new body template video about a month ago. This is where this started to get real juicy, okay? At least for me, you know, I don't know where most of you are, but for me, it got really like, ooh, this is what needs to be done, like physical. Everything started to move more towards the physical body process and the liberation of the birthing portals. I've talked about this last March, I think, April, something like that. I had a little physical experience of this in July with my own birthing process when there was the story I've shared with you with contraction pains. They were literally birthing pains, and they liberated the old points of inception of pain, duality, separation, especially within the feminine structure, what within the divine feminine holds us on this planet. And I will talk about this in all of the structure, that everything that I've received, and it's basically a whole notebook almost in the new body template course. But what they were showing me now, it's very important to go into our roots. They keep saying this now for a few months now, go to the roots. And people maybe understand this as, oh, I need to ground myself. No, this is the work you do at the very deep levels of what makes us humans, what made us humans, what was, you know, the eons of expressions as human form, and what human form was perceived. It's in its operational dynamics, what it needs to provide, how it functions, all of that. And because that needs to shift, what the new body actually means is that if you want to go with the planetary shifting frequencies, your body needs to match that. That's all this means. So you basically have to set up a whole new template if you want to be part of that. And that's, for me, the only way people can truly ascend with the body. What gets, you know, upgraded in the way that's you doing the alchemical work. So even when I talk about divine union, I don't talk about twin flames. I talk about divine tantric or this sacred union, which is an alchemical process within you. And only that way you actually get to build this new platform through which you will be sustained with the upcoming upgrades and shifts. So if you look at the world only from the outside view, you will always find something that's limiting, that's hindering you, that's kind of like, you know, it's stopping me or preventing me from being the full expression of my freedom. And if you will still maintain that sense of freedom on the outside, like, you know, I had to literally think about my car. I thought, okay, there's a sense of freedom because I'm free to go and I sit in the car and go anywhere, because we don't really have buses here in this small alpine village. It's like bus goes every hour, I think, or something like this. And these are like, you know, more regional lines. They're not like direct lines here. So what this meant was like, is the amount of perceived freedom matching the freedom that I really want to birth in this new process. And people say, don't do things in terms of Mercury retrogrades, don't do contracts, don't sign deals. You know what? I will tell you, this is the biggest false program that I have actually uncovered myself through my own working, my own alchemical transition, when my spirit being started coming more and more into my physical presence. And every single thing that was sold to me from the outside was like, BS. It's like, literally, you have to go through all of the vortices within your body, and you have to really do proper self-maintenance there, okay? And you really have to see what's a real structure held within the inner reality of the self, or your I am being, or what's sold to you externally. So there's a lot of these beliefs still going on, even in the Ascension or New Age or New Wave circles, whatever it is. So when the level of your inner freedom, you know, which is truly liberation, it's soul liberation, grows, it expands, that will have to be met externally. So when people say, I'm free because I'm able to travel around the world or have this amount of money and all that, that which is in a way created only externally, which means only physically you can access that freedom, and it's a belief, and your soul is not yet liberated from the whole inception, from everything that is a part of this hologram of deception. And I will talk about this. It's all in the very deep 3-hour, I think it's almost 3 hours video course that I will offer for free. It's like you're not really free. You're not liberated. There's still patterns of duality that are holding you. They're bringing you always back to this matrix, and you're not allowed to just expand like the spiral that you actually are. So now we're at this point when we're really needing to see true freedom, true liberation, what is this about? So in my own unveiling, I actually figured out that when Mercury is retrograde, or any planet being retrograde, its effect is deepened. It's not stopped. It's not put on hold. When people say it's all put on hold, so we have these things going off, my devices go off. You know, my devices never go off. Nothing ever not works in Mercury retrograde because I don't have a program for that. So people have this program. Naturally, this happens. I have to tell you one example. Just today, my mother told me she read this book about a man trying to be happy. So during this journey of his, he discovered so many things. And it was actually, she said, it was an interesting book. So he shared about this placebo effect. So when they gave people who were sick or something, they gave them these pills. They said, we're going to put you on I don't know, radiation. No, I didn't have radiation. They only have chemotherapy, right? So we're going to give you these pills, but they were actually placebos. And their hair actually fell off because they thought I'm going through a natural therapy, and this is a part of the process. And the man was like, I can't believe this is true, that it can happen, right? So literally, the way things function in the physical reality is because we have a belief about it. And our part of the biggest part, before we can go even deeper into physical ascension, which at the end it will be all about our physical body. It will be about the lower receiving from the higher and then merging, creating this point of synthesis and a merger being able to occur. And the biggest part is for us to unveil these beliefs and explore whether they're truly creation principles or their beliefs that we were kind of told, and maybe from eons time ago, that they're still playing out. So in my own development, I realized that actually Mercury retrogrades, for me, they work so super well because I don't have a belief. And I was born during Mercury retrograde, actually. Sorry, I talk fast today. I'm really excited. See, so people say, I saw someone recently, they said, I'm a Virgo, so this affects me. I'm a Virgo in the sun position as well. My sun is in Virgo. It's in 22 mastery degrees of Virgo, as well as my Mercury. They're right together, and that's what makes me communicate so well with you and create these videos without, anything holding me back. It's my natural ability. But then people say, yeah, because of Mercury retrograde, my speech is slowed down and I'm not as clear, or things like that. And the thing is, why are we believing that? It's someone told us Mercury retrograde affects us this way, and the mind is literally prone to say, oh yes, if it happens to this person or it happens to the collective, it must happen to me as well because I'm a part of it. The whole part of ascension is you totally liberating yourself from anything that, even astrology, we're all influenced at the collective level. But the way it influences you personally is the way you decide to, as a sovereign being. It's your creation. It's not something externally predicted for you because it affects the whole. Because the whole is a collective of consciousness that consists of many different types of consciousness, which means levels of awareness where these beings are at. And you can compare yourself and how things will influence you. So for me, I actually am always given the gift. I'm able to finish things. I'm able to do so many things during retrogrades that I'm, it's like a heightened energy expression at that time. So one day, this was this week, I just wake up and I knew even before that I need to get rid of my car. I also had a loan. Well, we had a loan. I didn't have it myself. But this was the first loan we ever had in our entire lives. And I always felt it would just be temporary because there was a whole mix-up back then. So we came at the point zero and we had no other chance. Either have a car and get this or get something like really clumpy and bad, and it's, then you have to pay for mechanics, and I don't have time for this all the time. So that was a choice I made at that time, but I knew it won't be a permanent one. So it was less than a year, and I always felt we needed to pay this off. This is unnatural to me. I didn't feel well because of that. And it felt like it's still conditioned freedom. It's not how freedom really should be, if we have this free energy, we can have points. Someone gave this example to me once. It's like you can have different stations where the cars are there, you just take it, you pay as much as far you go, you leave it at this, like these stations, right? And this is the modern, this is the way of, you only take what you need as much as you need and then move on. This is the free energy. This is the Aquarian New Age we're entering into. Well, this expression we hold now in my country, especially, people are like obsessed with their cars. They're like, each family has more than one car, and they're like, we need the car, and they're all like sprucing it up all the time, washing it all, polishing it. It's like, come on. it's a thing, instead of polishing themselves inwardly and, from outside. And this creates an obsession, and it creates a focus on things that really we shouldn't be focusing so much of our vital life force on. Okay, so all of a sudden I have this feeling this is still conditioned freedom. It's not real freedom. I need to find new ways of how I feel free and I can move around in space, right? And all of a sudden that day, I knew we had the first snow and I didn't have good tires on. And, I'm going to tell you the whole story because it doesn't really suit this topic. But all of a sudden I felt like this needs to be done now. It was like, I can't wait any longer, because I always want to manifest things inwardly through creating enough light quotient. And when the thing reaches its climax point, the physical expression should go with flow and ease, So before I was saying, I will do it when the winter comes because even my tires were, undrivable. And the snow came much earlier than I expected, and I just felt like this sense of tension. I'm like, I need to get this done. I put an ad on. It wasn't a few minutes. People started calling. The third person who called was a normal person. He said, I'll take it. We went. It was all done in one day. The debt was paid off. Everything was just done in one day. All doors were opening. It was such flow. And I was like, you see, when something is meant to happen, it's all happening like with ease. And before that, of course, we did our meditation. We asked for guidance, for clarity. But it was a beautiful process. And you simply, when you know that something has gathered enough internally, it's ready to shift externally. Basically, that's all there is. And it doesn't matter whether it's Mercury retrograde, whether it's Venus retrograde, whatever we say it is. You are not supposed to be hindered by the influences of your mind telling you and calculating things, because the new reality of Ascension is spiral, and it's us being in wave motion. It's us being in movement and perceiving time not as linear. I'm going to do this from here to there, but being like the spiral, being fluid with our thinking, with our movement, knowing when it's time to act, we will just feel it. The heart will tell us now. It will give us this green light. And it's so simple, basically. But, we have to have the level of awareness that's ready to receive such a gift of simplicity and the way we truly are. So for me, doing this was a huge step, because a part of the unknown was what happens next. Where will I go? I can't go anywhere. I can just walk around here, and the only thing I can do is by running or by foot. And, and the feeling was there's going to be new ways. And as pioneers, we have to create them. Because what I realized was the way how much input was there, it didn't match the output. I didn't use my car that much. And especially here when it's wintertime, you can't really go many places, and people who have their jobs, of course, they take the car, they drive. But if you don't need it as much, it's like it's something that's always sitting there. And we don't consider it energetically because it's all energy. It continuously takes your vital life force energy, because we don't know that for you to sustain your reality, all the objects, everything you have around you, you only have as much life force available. So people who have so many things, and even people with many real estates and these properties all over, whatever they have, it's like I had, when I was younger, I had a boyfriend, right? And his family was like this. They had so much, but they were always in stress. And they always, even when they went out for lunch, that's all they talked about. Their mind was so overwhelmed with all these things. And it's like, you can say, we're rich, we're happy, right? But truly, are you happy, or you have an idea that's sold to you what happiness is this possession? And so they were showing me now that it's very important to get clear. What do we need, what we no longer need, physically, as objects, as things, and the way we function, our routines, the way we participate with the whole global idea of ascension and information movement. Share only that which feels right. Share that which feels it's coming from your heart. Don't give excess time, energy to anything. And this is the teaching of the Mercury retrograde at this time, because it is in Sagittarius, which is wisdom, is that Sagittarius in tarot is 14. It's temperance, is balance, is this moderation. As much as comes in, goes out, and then comes back in reverse. So that's the infinity symbol in reversal, and it's always flowing. So what's also important is that I have to share the second part of my experience with you, is that once you do big moves like this, when you make physical movements, right, with something, your energy will have to go through an upgrade as well. So the next day, after this very exhausting day, right, we came home and late in the evening, and I was like, oh, we didn't eat or drink much, or it was kind of exhausting for the body, and I had a headache because I never have headaches unless something really, it's like splinters off, which means we don't get headaches because of blockages, but when something is unblocked, a lot of pressure, a lot of energy moves through that area, which can create an ease or something uncomfortable, or even impression such as pain. So for us to go energetically through the same process, we have to go through the upgrade. So the next day I didn't feel well. I said, okay, I rested, I slept, not well as always, but it still didn't feel right. So I said, come here. I said, Mom, let's go in our sacred space and let's really invite our team and the angelics to create a huge, like a light activation for complete recalibration now after this immense change. And they instantly showed us we moved a lot of energy with this process. Like when you do it physically, basically it's because your energy moved a lot. And that's why I was able to do it in one day. And you won't believe, but I called someone to help me prior to doing it myself. And it was a man, right? Someone we know here from the village. And he's like, no, you can't sell a car, not in winter time. You can do this, just cover it up, let it be there. I'm like, yeah, I'm paying for it, like anyway. What the heck? And he was trying to give me all this 3D money advice and pension, and I'm like, oh no, don't go there. Okay, buddy, look, no, you're not gonna go anywhere with me. But people are just so convinced, and it's difficult sometimes, you know. And I simply said, you know what? I will make my own choices. And I sold it in one day, basically. Few hours, it was all like tick. And it's not about the convictions we have externally or what someone tells us. If that person has that belief, that will be his reality. And I know it sounds kind of cliche, but it's how it is. So for me, it was like, no, I need to do it now. I feel it needs to be done now. And poof, it was done in one day. It was all, it's like just flowing. But what was also important, what they were showing me, like, because it was a lot of energy being moved and we had to do many errands that were kind of like, sequences of the whole process, they were guiding me to have little stops along their way. Because sometimes if the energy rushes in so fast, you're gonna have to ease up a bit sometimes, okay? So I'm usually guided to, first we did the car thing and all the contracts and all that. Then they drove us to the place where we need to go to that bank to to settle the loan. And after that, I said, no, let's go a little to walk through the city. It was actually my birth city where I was born. So it's funny, like where the rebirth occurred. I was like, what the heck? It's funny, right? But this is where the bank was. And we went a little antique bookshop, little things here and there. And each time we had something, we had a little stop. And then again. And so they were showing me like how the spiral works. It's like you don't go like from A to Z, done, get things fixed, get it settled now. But it's more like you flow with it. It's like flow is something that is still so new in this human realm. Even if the energy is already there physically on the earth, it's like people still need to learn to adjust to it. So we're adjusting ourselves and our bodies, the way we think, whatever we do. So again, I'm going back to what happened the next day. After this intense light activation, I have to tell you, it was just so intense. All I did was sit with it. And it was a lot of activity in the third eye. And they were sharing with me how much, when people give us all their own impressions and all of it, it's kind of like a wall can be built, like an energetic wall around our third eye. So we're no longer able to perceive clearly what's right for us, what we need. And a lot of times we need to get rid of that debris. And they're always telling me, you're not asking us enough for assistance, because we literally forget that we're a part of that assistance. It's just aspects of us that work from not such dense physical levels, okay? So after this total recalibration, it was amazing, because before that, and I was so stressed with all the things I still needed to unplug from and unveil from, literally physically get rid of. It was like a lot of energy invested in that process, and because of that, my tantric flow wasn't really going on as of the late. After this activation, I was kind of dizzy because it was like hard to go back in the body. So much work was done energetically. So we had to like rub the feet, massage a little bit. It's like really get easy with yourself, which is funny, right? When we drove with our car, the song that was playing was like "Take It Easy." It's like, what? It's funny, right? But it's guidance and how it comes in many ways. So after this whole angelic light activation, which was a recalibration, what they showed me, they said we always need to lift the energy to match what we've kind of set, right? We set the energy, we move through it, then we have to, give the physical and the inner energetic recalibration and sustenance to our body so it can match that new level. And afterwards, my tantric flow was immense. I started to pour, and I feel this instantly when it is, because I'm a tantrika being, and for me it's very simple to feel like this. And it was like the whole day, it was like constant this orgasmic pleasure energy flowing through me. I'm like, oh, finally my energy is flowing. It's fluid again. And this is how I know that I'm in balance and it's flow. So basically, this is what I wanted to share with you within my own example as well, how important this is now. And I guess not everyone will go through this process now, but in 2019, which is a huge transitional year period, it's like a lot of people will have to move through this process. So people, not like have to, but the way we choose, kind of like our choices then are matched with what needs to be done or created, better said like this, in this realm. So I now want to, also share with you, because at the same time, I listened to 2 audio files from Larkma. I think I've recommended them to you before. They're probably one of the rare sources I actually really, really resonate with, because when you tune into their messages, they're very similar to the messages I receive from the Lumen Council. Not always the same, but very similar. It's like a vibration that feels homey. It feels it's right. It feels like it's aligned with truth. It's not like a bunch of baloney, okay? Because that exists too in many, many, many ways. So they were actually discussing some of the things that I want to share with you as well today that are important, okay? And I will only go through a few of them. I don't want to copy anyone, as you know, so I do want you to, as much as I always tell you, please respect and support my work. Also support the work of others, right? So they have these MP3 downloads. You can listen to their audio calls if you want. And as well as I always tell you, if you choose to support this way, whatever helps your process, I always do the same. So I also invite you to consider the energetic response and reciprocation, what I'm sharing as well, if you feel it benefits your process, so that it assists you. Yeah, so thank you for that. Now, they were actually talking about the very same thing. They were talking about how the time for ceremonies, the way people came together in so many ways, is like coming to a closure, and it's over basically, because the reason why that occurred en masse is because people kind of needed to come together and be aware, oh, here we are, we're working towards the same thing. But I've been receiving the same message myself now, that now it's time to do the inner individual work, which a lot of people don't. They still put all their time in sharing this information, putting it out, all the interviews, propagandas, all that, which is, it's all good, but does it really serve us? Because even that, what they're sharing with me, creates a lot of entropy. Entropy, as you know, is an energy maximum that it's like, it's not really required for optimum development. So our evolution should always be the priority when we should ask ourselves, but where we are, not where the collective is. We're too much into where the collective energy is. Where is the collective divine masculine feminine? Well, you know what? As an ascension pioneer, you are required to always ask, where am I in the process of moving the collective forward? That's a much better question to ask, or to, be asked within yourself. So they're talking about now how this time is now for inner development. And that's why I tell you, we're moving into the new body. And people who are not investing in the life force, inner vitalization process and cultivation, people are not, they're going to get more and more symptoms, more and more frustration, more hardships in the body. And they're going to think something's wrong, when it's actually just they're not following up with the work they've actually signed up to do. So they were saying that the decision point actually, and this is the same guidance also that I received, otherwise I wouldn't be sharing it, because like I said, I don't want to copy anyone, okay? That's why I give you the source, so you know. But I'm going to tell you some points that really align with what my own guidance is telling me. So the decision point for Ascension has already been reached, and it has been made, and it's people who now that's also part of the energetic clutter, right? When you want to work for the betterment of others, to get them to ascend, to get them to a certain level, basically also what they say, you can't do that. No one can, because the decisions have been made at the level of the sovereign, which is the sovereign soul. The sovereign aspect within us is the one that makes this choice. It's the I am and the we are as a collective. But the sovereign, right, is the part that gives an impulse to each being, and that's why we in the physical act in correspondence to that, right? So this point has been made, and people think they need to assist every single one and do this and do that and participate in endless ways. They're actually hindering their own process, because now the most important thing to do is to be the vibration alignment, the embodied vessel for what the planet is cultivating. And as you know, the Schumann resonance is building up, which means our own inner heart, right? It's like the pulse of the earth. Our own pulse has to match that. And that's why when I have a Life Force Tantrika course for you in self-mastery processes, I also include as a part of that the cosmic pulse mastery, which is something you can self-induce and align with. And it's a simple technique. It's a very ancient star technique, but it's also very powerful. And I share that in that course. It's like many, many hours of work you can do. So, yes, a part of this decision is knowing that everyone is walking their path in parallel how it feels for them. And even when I always say ascension is not the same as awakening, right? Awakening is just one step. Sorry. They said the same thing. People who are now awake doesn't mean they're ascending. It means they're waking up at different levels, different degrees, which will all benefit them for when they are ready in their lifetime, in their current embodiment that will match that. So we have to start assisting the whole by assisting ourselves, by raising this vibration within, so we can be ready to receive these, like these immense energy waves that continuously are coming into our planet. And like they're explaining now, because of the solar minimum, these rays are now more impactful, and I've shared a lot about this process. I will also include this in the new body template, how to work with these cosmic rays for optimum creation of our new body, because the new body's intelligence knows how to use these rays for its own inner growth process. Well, the old body is not, so that's why it detects them as radiation. The old body's sense of these waves is like, oh, it's radiation, it's coming at me. Well, the new body uses this radiation for its own mutation processes, which it's like natural correspondence to the way the energy is. Your form follows that. So this is a natural pathway of ascension. So for us to assist this planetary process, as you know, we can't interfere in things like when the volcanoes would erupt, when things would happen, because they have their natural mechanisms and how they operate. So we can't interfere and say, "Ooh, I'm going to stop with my mind or my abilities or my visualization, the ability or of that volcano to erupt or this happen or that earthquake." We're not here to stop or prevent, because that's still control. We are here as light beings at the optimum level of our, operational gift for the planet. When we're truly planetary life servers, we function best to raise our frequencies from within, so we can intercept these rays at the highest optimum rate that we use then for our development and evolutionary processes of the new human, instead of wanting to control these processes outside of ourselves. So it's kind of like inward self-regulation process versus the external control of what's happening on the planet, and considering yourself so important to do that. Because I always laugh when people say, oh yeah, then I meditated and kind of like went into volcano and preventing it to happen, I did good, right? It's like, what do you think you are as a human, as powerful as we are? We can be, of course, when we're using our creative potential. We're misinterpreting our own creatorship abilities when we think, ooh, our mind is set to now to visualize this and that to happen. Or someone recently told me, I'm not satisfied with my parent and I would visualize it differently and I would hope for it to be different. Again, you're going against someone else, their free will, their choices. You're trying to visualize them different because that you feel benefits you, and that's still egotistical. It's still built on separation. Our only job is to embrace things as they are, to invite the natural processes to occur the way they are within us, is where we do the primary work of this inward-based evolution, involution basically, so we can become evolution. And that's how we pioneer through divine resonance instead of kind of like we're going against it because we fear it. So if we think we need to prevent this from happening, there's still fear involved. Somewhere in the background, there's still something lurking, as hidden fear there. So we're here to render ourselves not like is important to I'm going to prevent this volcano and let's do it together as a group. Come on, guys, let's do group activation. There's a lot of control present still there, and we're over that point. When you're in unity, unity is simply trust that the divine picture of life, the divine equation has everything covered. You're here to do your own part of that uncovering, unveiling, and ascending, which means raising the frequency so that the body can be a match to the collective or the new collective, right? So how to assist the planetary transitions best? With things like volcanoes, supervolcanoes, earthquakes, all these are natural processes within which we can interfere. But the best way is always invoking the highest good for each and every one, and then be a part of that highest good ourselves. Be the mechanism, not of control, but of change within, okay? So it's best to always intend that even when people, they migrate now all over the planet, there's going to be lots of migration because of these changes, and not all of them, are natural, but it's a combination of man-made and natural changes that are happening within the Earth's core as the planet is shifting in its own vibration alignment. So we have to, the best intention is that it's the heart of creation is returning to this planet, that people can be within their hearts so that everyone would know where it's best for them to be, right? So that it's all following the divine plan of perfection. So that is the highest intention you can always hold. And when you embody it yourself, you don't even have to send it as thought waves to anyone. It's just you radiating that, which kind of brings me to something very important they've talked about, as in 3 stages of working within the light. And this is something, a topic dear to my heart, because so many times people write me somewhere, comment like, oh, thank you, light worker. And I'm like, oh, I get nervous when I hear something like that because it's not true. I always said I'm not a light worker, I'm a pillar. And they're the ones who deeply, beautifully explain this process, that there's many levels how you operate within the light. So light worker is not simply a term of, okay, it explains or describes you. Not at all. But it's a level of your awareness through which you are capable of working with the light. And the way they explain it is like 3 stages that are main stages. There's many like shifting phases as well. But 3 main phases of working with the light. The first one is the so-called light workers. And these are the ones who are recognizing that there's light, that they're light, and learning to apply this light, working with the light for their own self processes, okay, of their own expansion. Then there's light movers, and this stage, this level, is when you learn to move the energy, so you're being more conscious of the processes and then rearrange your thoughts that shift when you're consciously observing yourself, and you're using energy to move your process along. And because of that, you also have a bigger influence on what's happening at large. But then there's the last stage, which they call light bearers. I call them light beings, pillars. Light beings, we are the ones, when they started saying this, I started to cry because I just knew that's my home. That's my being. That's what I am. That's what I embody. And they were explaining how light beings or bearers are simply just conscious, always conscious. They don't react to anything. They're neutral agents. And because of that, they're strong agents for change. But it's more like I feel them, they're just radiating that. They don't have to engage with any process anymore, like a part of, even the moving energy. It's like it's a transition here, which invites you into a space of simply being with all within divine love. And it's this great force of divine benevolence that's born of it. And this is for me what illumined mastery means. So they were saying that people are at different levels, and it's not for us to understand this intellectually, but feel where you are and feel where you want to move energy towards, and then make the conscious change. Because it's not enough for us to wish to be somewhere or think of something like, I'm sending you this and I hope this would happen. I love their definition of hope, because they say hope is developed for the human as a transition into trust, because it was very difficult for people to have absolute trust. So they said, we're going to hope first, right? It's like, I hope this would change. I hope this would be better. Where trust is like, you know that things are always the way they need to be, and there's always a higher perspective there. So there's a huge difference here. So one thing, like I said, there will be a lot of migrations on the planet as a part of this whole process. They also said there are certain safe spaces on the planet. But people are always like, okay, yeah, but how to locate them? How do we know? And this is an important thing which invites us again into our own discerning abilities, our own intuitive heart feeling like that we are where we need to be and beyond fear. You know, when they say don't move in order to, you know, because you fear of staying, or you stay because you fear of moving. I love that sentence. It's just so brilliant, because it's supposed to be everything we do, everything we choose, be brought from an illumined perspective. And I have this whole course I created as the last synthesis course called The Mastery of Illumined Creation. And this is where you really stand in this illumined light as a pillar, as a light bearer or light being. And simply everything, just because you radiate light and you have already used light for your own processes, you have already moved light, but now you're coming, like, it's like this complete pulling of all that. It's like a toroidal field coming back in and just being fully aware of itself and its natural process and its natural creation principles moving through it. So this is where you're using all of this that you've come into awareness of, and it's like it's being fed back within you. And this is the basic template, right? That is a part of this new human. New human is Newman. Well, sorry, sometimes we create fast thinking makes us fast forward, right? And then we create a new word. It's a new man. What's basically is what it is as well, except we are women too. So yeah. So it's very important for us to follow the lines of feeling, really feeling the energy around us. Reading things more at the level of energy basis, and even like I said before, not seeing or planning your day in a linear fashion. Now I do this, then I do that, and like it was explained in the way I teach the spiral consciousness is feel the movement of the energy and where it's pulling you towards. So when I feel all of a sudden my tantric energy starts to flow and then I want to go, I don't know, somewhere and do something, it's like I know I will waste this energy. I have to lift it. I have to raise it up. So I have to divide, you know, something that I would say, I need my attention here, but then I have to really, not divide, it's not the right word. I simply have to access where the majority of my energy is and then give that proper attention so that the body will follow where the energy is. So a part of this and feeling our safe spaces and knowing where we are to be and how the energy and how to read energy is watching also these cosmic ray cycles, like reading KP index as well. You can do that, feeling how these days of geomagnetic activity and increased storms, of course, obviously our body will need different things than maybe our mind is planning. So it's really getting so important how we treat ourselves, because basically it will override us. It will just flush over us. And that's why a lot of us can feel flushed. We say we're flushed when these things happen. It's because we're not accessing the ultimate self-nurturing potential for what is needed in this real time. Our mind sometimes is too much in the past or in the future. It cannot locate the proper handling for you that you truly require. So in the body will tell you, because the body can only exist in real time. It doesn't exist any other way. The form is not held or created. So the building of the new body template is something that, like I said, it's not something that just automatically happens. It's an inner process. And I will read you something I wrote today as a part of my channel drawings. You can see and access all of these drawings on my Instagram profile. So it actually, the latest drawing was about receiving the new human body template. However, this is not something that just happens. The physical ascension with the body is the most arduous and challenging process of soul creation. It is literally the hallmark of our own sovereign creatorship within the seed of life. A soul has to become completely sovereign and free of anything that still holds it within the lower density realms. In order to be ready for soul-born genesis, it has to become liberated from within and therefore free of any inception. Receiving the new body template within divine love and entering into the incubation stage for the creation of the new ascended body is the next step if the initiate chooses to do so. This is quite an undertaking, and therefore it requires absolute understanding and self-compassion during the many transition stages and gradual processes. Or gradual stages, because it is gradual, or it's like a light bulb going, you know, it's like a short circuiting of our body. The body was existing in so many layers of density, so we're continuously reprogramming or redesigning it to hold itself in a completely new format, new way. So it's important that we really declutter now. And I've shared so much in this. I hope I've given you a wider perspective. And we're not supposed to deal so much what they're showing me with the external things like, was this natural made shift? Was this man-made shift? Because that's still duality. What was natural? What was man-made? We're going more into unity. It's like, even if something is man-made, there's a force that calls out this process which we don't understand. When we bypass the mind, we're starting to understanding. So those of you moving more into unity consciousness, you're starting to understand that everything is a part of the life force, that all life is structured through life force. If there's no impulse, you don't get out of the bed, right? If there's no impulse for you to, I don't know, sell your car, go to a grocery store, whatever it is, it's an impulse. And the mind maybe there interprets that this way or that way. So when we still have a lot of duality, it interprets it a certain way. And we are here to mitigate the process, or be the mediators or the midwives of the process, because yes, there are forces on the planet or beings on the planet that are using this, their own translation or interpretation of the mind, which they say this is the best. Yes, for them. They're not tuning into unity consciousness yet. So again, the best thing to shift is, instead of saying, was this a natural change? Was this man-made? Was this bad? Was this good? To just shift. And even they explain it like this: send these waveforms, or just be in the presence of knowing that everyone is guided through their hearts, the heart of the one, the heart of the cosmic pulse of life, that the impulses will be translated through the heart instead of the separate mind. So that instead of sending or assisting or trying to save and rescue, we intend this higher good, right? So if you send love and light also, it cannot go with judgment. So I'm sending love and light to this process or earthquake or whatever it is, but you still hold the judgment that the process was somehow bad. So you're not just sending love and light, you're also sending along with it your judgment. And a lot of light workers, because they're not yet trained in the way energy moves, they haven't yet been light movers, they haven't entered that stage, they sometimes also send lots of other crap, okay? I'm sorry, it's just how it is when you know reality of energy work. Whew. So for you to really enter into this new stage, it's quite a training. It's an energy training work, which a lot of beings were doing, I think for many times, for many years now. And these beings are ready to really shift into light movers, or even light beings or bearers. But they have to give up what was known to them as we're being light workers, right? It's like you have to move from what stands in the way of your own judgment. You know, it's like stands in the way of you and what you perceive through your own judgment. What else can I share? It's already so long, right? It's super long, but sometimes people will tell me they like it like that, so I just go with the flow. So also, as a part of this sending love and light, or being in the light and love within neutrality, which is a force of life force of spirit that knows what it's doing, even when the humans are translating it a certain way, at the higher vision and plan, there's still benevolence. So for us to be in that, you're actually creating the most openness to this new consciousness to come. And if there's one person and it spreads out, and you're actually creating a new network of this benevolence, which will eventually influence even those who are resisting the most, you know. Even the toughest resistors will become, you know, the meek or whatever. So also it's important to do the actual work and standing up for things. Like, and we have the issue of 5G, which really was bad for us because it interferes with our cognitive processes, and it overstimulates or overwhelms our mind, right? So the mind gets, and you no longer, you know, really do the natural organic stuff. Instead, you become more like a robot. Then it's also part of our movement to say no, you know, and people coming together, and even in villages or cities saying, no, we don't want this. You can't force us. Because they want to say to people, oh, you know, you have no other choice. It's coming, or this technology is just coming. Yes, you do. You know, even with the phones, people are picking them up. Oh, it has AI. It will scan you. It has a chip. The next stage is you have your own chip inserted. People take it. So people, no one can tell you, oh, you don't have a choice. Yes, you do. But we're convinced that we're powerless, just little humans. We can't do anything. And this was the biggest lie ever told, as you know, the biggest inception. So we have the power, speaking up, standing up, without judging the process, okay? So it's important to know what does suit us, the planet. So when something you feel it doesn't, instead of judging it, just say, okay, it's still a part of the process, which maybe I don't fully understand. But in the way I'm sovereign, I get to shape my reality by choosing only that which I know that serves me and my reality, and therefore also the planet. So if people would send a lot of anger within even their emotional trigger and releasing, it's also not good because it goes out. So we have to become masters of our emotion, of our triggered responses, reactions, instead of moving into more responding to life. So what's harmful? Harmful things, technologies, 5G, all of that. It's not like it can just happen. But if we feel, oh, they're going to use this against us, and we're in fear, instead of saying, no, I'm going to do the organic ascension. So I'm standing in the light of that, right? So, like I said, an example of 5G becoming a reality, maybe not a whole global reality, but certain places would say yes to it. They just sign yes under it. That would make people more like robots. And because their pathways of energetic cognition and how we process information would be distorted. Okay, so the brain, how it analyzes things, it's overstimulated. It's like you're like programmed to do something, and there's energy waves or patterns that can program certain behaviors in people, as you know well. So this is called the frequency altering processes, right? And we must always raise our vibration to do the inner work, so that this does not really influence us in that way. I will share more in the new body course. The last thing I want to share here is sharing our light. Okay, this is something very important as well. The way we share within each other, within our groups, within, I don't know, friendships, communities, even just in your intimate relationships. Because I'm always noticing that when someone shares something within unity, that doesn't mean I'm going to give you the whole picture and that means includes you. When you're in unity, that means you have to be unified from within yourself first. This is also how you stay your energy master. When someone gives their own expression of experience and they're sharing about themselves from their own unity, we're not necessarily invited to give our own interpretation of what's happening to them. And people saying, I'm giving you this guidance. That's not really sharing your light. Sharing your light means being your light, because like I said, at the highest level, you are the light being, you are the light bearer, you are a pillar, which means you can only share your experiences, your perceptions of your experiences, and maybe your guidance for these experiences. And a lot of times in the human journey with others, people will often feel pulled, like if someone shares something with them, they're almost like expected to give their own offering or their own input when someone will share something with them, or share themselves, because we're automatically programmed to do so, to have a response based on duality, which is, I perceive you from my perspective, so maybe I'm supposed to give you this, and it's just your definition of what's happening with them. But it's like we would automatically feel that someone needs our input in this situation they're sharing or something they're offering. So how to share within unity and be in unity through relationships is now becoming so vitally important, because it asks us to stand in our light, to be our light, which means I'm not giving you anything unless you yourself invite me. If you ask me, if you say, I will really love to hear your input, instead of just we're like, oh, la, 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 my thoughts, my impressions on this, because it's like our brain, our mind is programmed like this. And we really have to step up in knowing that when you express yourself with someone, everything basically you can talk about, you can express, is from your own standpoint. It's about you. It's not like selfish from a perspective, I only talk about myself. No, because you do listen when someone speaks, but you're aware now that you can only listen and you can only be there compassionately, and you are only sharing. You're not there to bring your light to their situation unless you are asked. Unless someone asks you to be their counselor, their guide, something they would really love to hear from you, and they automatically, with their free will, they give a consensus. Otherwise, like, we're programmed that we're expected to say something or share something in return about them, when maybe we're just here to share because it's our human nature. Someone sometimes just speaks not because they necessarily want something from you, because they like to share. They're sharing their inner child with you, and No. So instead of saying, someone gives you a reference about something, what happened with them, and instead of you saying, oh, I think you experienced this because this and that, and maybe that's your guidance, you would say, oh, that's so interesting. But you know what happened to me? Da, 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 da. And you give like your parallel, your experience. So the new human is like this fluid relationship. We don't like someone shares and the other one's like, right? It's more like, I'm me, I'm my sovereign, you're your sovereign. And when we share, we come together very close, right? We're not necessarily entangled. So this is the new way. It's becoming very important. So watch out for that as well, especially during the Mercury retrograde. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this prolonged video. I thought it's going to be like half an hour. And of course, it's always doubled or tripled for me. It's my thing. Okay, Mercury, maybe that's what he does. He emphasizes, he deepens the communication, so it's even longer. So the last update I have for you is that the next thing coming up is that free course on mastering your abilities, your cognitive multidimensional abilities, moving out of the inception points and creating mastery of seership within yourself, what that truly is. It's a very long course. I worked on it for the whole week, just bringing it physically, but it's a longer process. It's like my whole life, truly create my own wisdom of all of this, of inception and all. And the next thing will be the new body course, and it's kind of like coming out together. But after that time, what they're showing me, for me, I will really need to step into my own incubation stage, my phase of the new body, because that's where I am, and I have to consider that my vital energy, my vital processes right now in the body require that. So I'm not going to be doing videos the way I used to right now during this stage. The last month, which is the 12th month of the year, which is basically, right, the 12th house is the inward. It's the inner alchemy where you turn towards and do the whole life review. For me, it will be used for that. And if you find yourself as a part of the process, I encourage you to do not the same, but to follow your own guidance in that direction, you know. So December will be not so much of me appearing on the screen, but there's so many videos already created and it's all there, and it's constant work for me either way. Now it's just going to be more inward work based on my body. I will do Patreon content as well, of course, in December. That will be the only thing I will really continuously do. But I really need that break. It was intense for me all those years, and bringing it all, you know, so when I receive, I share instantly. I share directly with you when I create the synthesis. So there's a lot of input. And if you have been, in a way, assisted through this process, I do encourage you to consider the energy exchange. And this is why I resonate with Larkma so much as well, because they always encourage the same. And they've once discussed how this, you see, the voice is not participating anymore. Well, this is a challenging process for us, but it needs to be done. It has to be done through unconditional energy exchange and flow so that we can create it within ourselves. So thank you for watching, for being here, for participating benevolently, neutrally, but firmly in your light beingness, in the way you bear light and birth light on this planet. So there's all the video courses there. You can assist yourself, and it's time. It's just time. So that's a legacy for me, and I'm moving on to new pathways as well, because eventually things have to complete. And I will see you. I will see you when I see you, and take care. Bye. So much love.